Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm John Peters. I'm a therapist who's been working with thousands of patients over the last 25 years. And this channel is about a wide variety of wellness techniques and information shared by a therapist. So in this video, I am going to give you my thoughts on my number one favorite book to recommend to patients and to friends related to becoming more emotionally competent. Okay, so in today's video, I am going to be talking about the book Emotional Agility, which I have here on my Kindle. I've been in practice for 25 years, during which time I have read a boatload of books related to therapy and therapeutic issues. I'm personally a bookophile. I like using the modality of so-called bibliotherapy, meaning assigning appropriate books that are consistent with treatment goals. And so, I am no stranger to books. I like books. I like using books. I like recommending books. But like the practical techniques that I have talked about in other videos, I like recommending books that I know are valid in the sense that they're actually offering something, not that they're just on the topic or they're interesting reads. And I also like recommending books that I think most people will actually read and get through. So, I'm a little bit picky about the books that I recommend, but I will have to say that if somebody asks me, okay, quick, John, think of your number one book that you recommend for emotional competence, hands down, Emotional Agility by Susan David is the book. It's a really, really good book on the topic. In fact, I can't think of a close number two offhand that I would say, even competes well with the book in general. And the reason for that is that, all of us, I am, you are, all of our friends, everyone we know, we're all involved in a lifelong project of handling challenging emotions and, in general, trying to become more competent at handling challenging emotions, right? We start this process at the beginning of our lives, and when we take our last breaths, we're still going to be involved in that. But, there are articulation points in that evolution in each of our lives when we work with the project itself. So we actually are working with the fundamental capacity that we have to become more emotionally competent, and we make gains that move us ahead in that evolving competency. And the book Emotional Agility by David is exactly the type of tool if you want to take a significant, firm step ahead in that process, right? So David is a psychologist, worked for most of her career in the mode of acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm going to make a video on that actually soon. But she works in this mode of acceptance and commitment therapy, and then she became a corporate trainer later in her career, and I believe is still today. But she's a very seasoned therapist, so she wasn't just writing some things down because they're logical and coherent and good ideas. She was speaking from her place of being a very mature practitioner, and obviously from what she's offered, a very competent practitioner. And in particular, what this book offers is that all of us, she calls them hooks, I call them triggers, but we have these things that stimulate our stress response. And most of us have these moments where we go from 0 to 100 in 4 milliseconds, and there doesn't seem to be any space in between where there's choice and we're in control, right? So something happens, we're having an emotional response. And we might sometimes have an inkling that, there's some process in there that leads from A to B without just a single step. But, her book, Emotional Agility, teaches us how to look at that carefully so that some of the time we actually start to get better at being able to notice when something happens and then multiple steps happen in the between, and then we end up with the outcome of our uh, attitude toward ourselves, our thoughts, our emotional reaction. So that's a very important part of becoming more emotionally competent, is not feeling out of control and seeing that there are those finer distinctions in the process of the reaction so that we can have more agency to be able to craft a more satisfying pattern or sets of patterns of responses to emotional triggers. So that's kind of the main gist of what the book's about. She talks about different types of hooks, but she gives some really helpful ideas and good explanations about how to zoom in on that very quick process that we often think is just kind of happening to us, and helps us have more of a sense of agency because we realize that we are actually more active participants in that process than we sometimes might think, right? So highly recommend it. If you were going to buy exactly one book on emotional competence, this is it. Now, it's not necessarily the book if you're buying it because, for example, you're currently depressed and you want to be undepressed. I mean, if you're currently depressed, you should see a therapist and also ask that therapist for books that are good for the particular struggle you're having that's contributing to or maintaining your depression. I do think it helps people generally be more emotionally competent, and that will help with episodes of more acute critical kinds of times of challenging emotions. But I view this book more as this is just part of the handbook for life. This is just something we all should read. It's a type of book that, this is true for me, and it's also true for other people. Actually, everybody I've talked to who's read it has gone back and decided, I'm going to read it a second time. I'm going to go back and read it a third time. Or people who listen to it on audio, I'm going to listen to it like 5 times because the advice in it is so helpful, and it pertains to such a pervasive, ongoing part of our lives. We're emotional about all kinds of things daily, right? So it's just a really good support. So highly recommend it. It's my favorite book on emotional competency. I am going to make a couple other book reviews in the near future talking about some special issues like anger management and grief. But this is the best general book on emotional competency. Highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the below if you want to jump over to Amazon and check it out. So thanks for joining me today. As always, feel free to leave comments. Feel free to hit the like button below, and I will see you in an upcoming video.